All right. Might do something. Yeah, there's something in our course. Did we do course notes? I don't remember if we did course notes. All right. Hello, dear ones, all of you people on Zoom, in the middle of the bush, wherever you are. Me in Zurich, Carol in Wales, Tara in Cyprus, all over the place. So Lars is back in Denmark. Are you back in Denmark, Lars?
Yes, I arrived just a few hours ago.
There you are. Okay.
Yeah.
And here we are wherever we are in Zurich. I get a bit confused sometimes. Okie doke. Let's go. What are you going to do, Lars?
Tonight, is Nina around?
Who?
Nina.
She's here.
She's here because she wanted to do a short introduction. I can't do it very well, but I can't see the people in the center, so maybe Nina would like to come up and say hi and introduce.
Maybe close the door, Nina.
Yeah.
What happened to the door? Don't want to close the
Because
door?
nobody can see my face.
No, that's okay. So Nina's going to do it.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Nobody can see mine. I'm wearing a mask, but you can at least hear me. It's really nice to see everybody on the screen. So many of you joined from so many different countries, and here in the center, we have some familiar and some unfamiliar faces. I said that before, that the center was basically quite empty for the last 2 years, and now not only is it full of people, beautiful people, but also beautiful teachings and wonderful presence of Venerable Robina. Venerable has also, this is her first trip in the last couple of years to Europe. So we're incredibly honored that our little study group is blessed by having these teachings. And I think tonight is a very special night for all of us. I think we all have been receiving a lot of questions and requests about Tantric teachings and also Guru devotion teachings and Guru yoga teachings. So I think that having this opportunity tonight to hear about this from you, Venerable,
Good.
very honored, very happy. And these teachings have been life-changing to me, and I think to many of us here in this group. So I really wish that all our lives will change for better tonight.
Good.
Yeah,
Let's aim for the best.
Venerable, the stage is yours.
Okay, darling. Let's do a mandala offering. It's really important to do mandala offering tonight. So Lars, let's do the mandala. Imagine we're offering a mandala. Have you got the mandalas here now?
Yes,
Let's do it. I think it's good to do it tonight, especially.
Yes.
Then I'll prepare for the screen.
Actually, let's wait a second, Lars, because Nina's going to get
Yes,
the
I'll
mandala.
just prepare the text.
Mhm.
Give me a
What we're
sec.
going to do is just offer and imagine all the contents of the universe. Really, that's what the mandala is. The mandala, when you see those round drawings, those circular drawings, they're just like an architectural drawing of the abode of a Buddha. We're going to talk about that tonight, actually, from Tantra. So a mandala in here, we're just offering our mandala of our world. So it means the contents of the world. So we just visualize, as we say this in prayer, that we're offering all the marvelous things of the world that make people happy. We're offering it all to the Buddha, to Tara, Buddha Tara, as a request for the teachings.
Yes.
Go, Lars.
So, sorry.
The bottom of the second prayer.
Yeah. Coming. Sao shi perki yu
Xing metor tramri rabni ni de yan padi So what we do there also What we did also was offer representations of enlightened body, speech, and mind, creating the cause for us to achieve enlightened body, speech, and mind. And then we do the inner mandala. I think we do this one. It's very nice to do this one, Lars.
Yes.
And I think I'll say it in English. So I'll say it in English. So this is called the inner mandala. It's actually from the Vajrayana practice. And I mean, yes, you always would have us do it. So basically you're offering, you'll see the words, we think we're going to offer all the objects of my mind's delusions, all friends, foes, enemies, body, wealth, all your worldly pleasures, all the things that are the result, are the objects of our delusions. We're going to offer all these to the Tara. She can handle it. Give them all away. All our delusions and the objects of our delusions, and receive them and please free all beings from these sufferings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. Thank you, Lars. So it's so important, to understand Tantra, Vajrayana, Mantrayana, Vajrayana, Mantrayana, Tantrayana, the vehicle, this vehicle, in the framework of the big picture. Then it makes sense. Otherwise, it's just this weird, esoteric, hippie trippy thing, So of course, Tsongkhapa has his lam rim. All the traditions in Tibet have their various packagings of the teachings within which this fits, This is why repeatedly I use the idea of junior school, high school, university, postgraduate. It really, really, really works. So the lam rim is basically a course. It's Atisha back in the 11th century in Tibet, had been there for a couple of 100 years. He came along, and I think Dharma had been flourishing in Tibet since Guru Rinpoche in the 8th century. But I think he kind of maybe thought they'd lost the plot a bit, or it was not so clear where all the bits fit. Because in the Nalanda tradition, this amazing monastic university system in India, been flourishing since the 5th, 4th, 5th, 6th century. And an incredible place of learning, all the vast body of knowledge, that had been in India all these years. And then Guru Rinpoche went from there and went to Tibetan, and then it grew from there and stayed intact, So this vast body of knowledge, which is the view of Buddha of the universe, it's a holistic view of the world. So the following of this path, the involving ourselves in the methodology of this path, results as our becoming a Buddha, if we're on the Mahayana path. The result of this work is to become a Buddha. Like you graduate as a Buddha. You enter into this course and you graduate as a Buddha. Buddha, free of delusions, full of all the virtue. Speaking really simply, the etymology of that word's so delicious. So there's one way of framing all of that path. It's in terms of getting rid of suffering and getting happy. Sounds rather silly, almost, getting happy, Achieving the potential that the Buddha has found is the potential of every single living being. So one way of looking at Tantra is in the framework of the causes of suffering. So Buddha's basically telling us that we're not in touch with reality. We're not in touch with how things exist. And the delusions in the mind, the afflictions, these misconceptions, a whole range of these emotional, neurotic, emotional misconceptions, but also these intellectual misconceptions, these misconceptions about the universe, about the law of cause and effect, about there being a creator, about how things, finally, about how things finally exist, the final nature of how things are. Buddha says we're living in La La Land. So there's one way of presenting this, and saying that attachment is the main cause of suffering. Effectively, according to the Four Noble Truths, attachment is the cause of suffering. Of course, the root delusion, ego grasping, ignorance, maripa, is the root cause of suffering. But effectively, in this universe that we live, this desire realm, attachment is the cause of suffering. So there's a way of describing the stages of the path all the way up to the Vajrayana in terms of attachment. So given that attachment is the cause of our suffering, this junkie, this emotional hunger, this junkie in our mind, this junkie mind, this constant craving, this constant sense of not having enough, not being enough, which is this emotional hunger, therefore, to get something. It's and this attachment has created this dualistic view of a universe, of a mind, and then all the objects out there. Our body is made of attachment. It's made by attachment, the 5 senses. And then the universe is the 5 sense objects, isn't it? It's the creation of attachment over eons. This desire realm, these bodies themselves. So given that attachment is the cause of all our suffering, the very first level of practice, junior school, entry level, is control the servants of attachment. And what's that? That's the body and the speech. The first level of practice is abide by the laws of karma, practice good ethics. Don't kill, steal, lie. Don't be driven. Control the servants of attachment, the body and speech. Harness them. That's the first level of practice. That's junior school. But you can go further. You can now get to the root of the problem, which is the mind itself, which is you begin to unpack and unravel the afflictions, the delusions, the misconceptions that drive the body and speech to do actions that harm others and therefore harm oneself. So you start to look into the delusions themselves. You become your own therapist, as Lama Yeshe would so nicely put it, but profoundly true. You really learn to understand the Buddhist model of the mind. And you understand how, of all of the thousands of delusions, 84,000 misconceptions, the Buddha says, and 21, as Ling Rinpoche says, 21,000, and you've got the 3 poisons, the 3 toxic emotions, these 3, they're all subsumed to these 3. 21,000 of them are rooted in ego grasping, 21,000 are rooted in attachment, and 21,000 are rooted in aversion or anger, and the fourth 21,000 are rooted in all 3. So it's this kind of coherent picture of the mind, But they all subsume to these 3. As simplistic as they sound to us in our culture, they're actually profound. The understanding of attachment, of ignorance, attachment, and aversion are profound. It's profound when we have it. So now we start to get in touch with attachment itself. As Lama Yeshe says, I can tell you about attachment for 1 whole year. We will never begin to understand it until we start working deeply inside. Unpacking and unraveling, digging deep into the mind, beginning to identify ever more deeply, ever more deeply, ever more deeply this attachment, and the others, of course, all the others. So the result of junior school is that you give up harming others, and so the result of that, if you go no further, is that when you die, you'll get another decent human rebirth, and you'll keep on moving. But you go to high school, you go to the next level. And you start to get to the root of the problem, get to the delusions, and you start to give up attachment and aversion and the other nonsense. You start to see through the lies that they are, you stop believing in them. Then you get renunciation of samsara altogether. And how would you be? You'd be this radiant, blissful, content, fulfilled person. Giving up this vampire mind of attachment, Therefore you've given up anger and jealousy and pride and all the other rubbish which stem from attachment. You'd be this marvelous, radiant, joyful, fulfilled person. And of course, if you completed the job there, you'd realize emptiness and you'd get out of here. You've achieved your own nirvana. But essentially, you've given up attachment. You've achieved renunciation of attachment. And as Lama Zopa says, you've got renunciation. You've given up attachment. You've got renunciation. When just the thought of another moment of attachment is so repulsive, it's like being in a septic tank. So way to go. We don't even understand what it is. We just use it as a cute word. We have no idea. It's profound. Then, on the Mahayana path, we then go to the compassion wing and continue to work on our mind, but this time to give up all, to look at the delusions in terms of their effect upon sentient beings, to lessen our delusions in order to be able to benefit sentient beings, to lessen our delusions so that we break down the barriers between self and other. Continuing to work on the 3 poisons in reference to sentient beings, give up seeing friend, enemy, stranger, see that they're just fabrications of attachment, So continuing to work on our mind, and then we accomplish this amazing primordial shift in the mind called bodhichitta, where now only others arise in your mind, only the wish to benefit others is in your mind. You become this marvelous, powerful, courageous person. And then you complete the bodhisattva path by doing this, living in the 6 perfections, life after life after life, perfecting the 2 wings of the bird, perfecting the compassion wing by living in the 4, by perfecting the first 4 perfections, and then finally, really, achieving the last 2, and realizing emptiness, and then combining bodhicitta with wisdom and becoming a Buddha. But here, at this point, you then speed up your process by entering into the Vajrayana. So taking a person who's actually accomplished these stages, now you're qualified. Now you're qualified to actually engage in objects of attachment. Because now you have the power to utilize the joy that is triggered in the mind on the basis of contacting objects of attachment. Now your mind does not go berserk, as Lama Yeshe puts it. Because Tantra, and these genius Indians before the Buddha were the ones who came up with it, this concept, this approach. There's a way we're constructed. This body of the 5 senses is constructed in such a way that the greatest yogis are able to utilize. They talk about in Tantra utilizing the poison. But the only person who can utilize poison is the person who's given it up. It's the irony, So Tantra's, as Lama Yeshe puts it, is very technical. It's highly technical. It's the most advanced level of practice. And the simplest reason it's quick, it's said to be quick. They talk about, you hear about how you have to accumulate the 2 accumulations. You have to accumulate wisdom. You have to accumulate merit. You have to accumulate wisdom and bodhichitta, basically, compassion, really, put it that way. So it's like you have to accumulate a certain amount of wisdom and a certain amount of and compassion in order to have enough to complete Buddhahood. And in the sutra teachings, in the Mahayana sutra teachings, you do them in different, you do the wisdom in your meditation, and you do the cultivating compassion in your action, in your daily life. But Tantra, technically speaking, you accumulate both together. That's the reason it's fast. That's it. Of course, that's meaningless to us now because we don't understand the technology of Tantra. So what if you talk about, look at the first level, given that attachment is the problem, the very first level you do not touch. If you're, you control your body and speech, you leave the cake on the plate. You leave the object there because your attachment is completely uncontrolled. So you try to control the servants of attachment. The next level, you now get to the root of the problem and you start to understand the attachment itself and you start to harness that. And as you're going, you're getting more and more control. You're getting more and more discipline. You're getting more and more wise. By the time you get to so at the first level, you leave the cake on the plate. At the next level, you can even argue if you really begun to harness attachment and understand it and demystify it, you can even have the cake without going too berserk. You could say that. By the time you get to the compassion wing and you've got bodhicitta, you might not even yet have realized emptiness, but your compassion is so tremendous. You can eat the cake happily and not be distressed by it because you such compassion. You do it for the sake of others. Such compassion. It wouldn't distress you. By the time you get to Tantra, you would consciously choose to eat the cake because you want to energize the joy that's triggered by meeting the object of attachment, and because you're able to utilize it. That's just a technical point, because it's found that the combination of the bliss that is triggered in the mind and concentration based on these techniques gets the mind to the subtlest level. It's a technical point. This gets the mind to the subtlest level, the microscope of the mind, so that you can quickly get realizations. Something kind of simply like that. But I want to talk about it more in terms of how you apply this in daily life, this approach, the so-called Tantric approach. When Lama Yeshe met all us Westerners back in their 70s, hippies and things, he said, you people don't even know how to be happy. You're so miserable. You know how to be miserable. You know how to suffer. So all the time trying to lift us, try to lift people's mind, make them actually try to have a happy mind. And he taught Tantra from quite early. Normally speaking, you go to the monasteries, you study for years, and eventually you might take an empowerment, and then you don't really study it until later, I mean, he said, because he talked about Tantra, one approach to what Tantra is, it's a method of transforming poison. Use that as the analogy. And he said, because I'm out in the West, we're super educated, technically very brilliant. And also we're kind of swim in attachment. We live in a world of attachment. And he said he felt that we were kind of able to understand this concept of transforming energy, He would teach and always teach in a very simple way, a way that was kind of really experiential. So the first level of practice, you can't afford to have too much. You can't afford, right at the first level of attachment, the first level of practice, junior school, you're uncontrolled. Your mind goes completely berserk, even just a glass of water when you're very thirsty. Attachment is so uncontrolled. So your body and speech are uncontrolled. So you can't afford there. And when the mind gets a bit pleasure based on attachment, you go berserk, So you've got to harness the body and speech. Then you get to the attachment, you start to have more wisdom and understand what it is technically. Conceptually, you start to understand it. How it's a misconception that presents the world to you in a way that doesn't exist. That it exaggerates the deliciousness of something. And you believe it. We're in the throes of it, But already you're starting to get more intelligence about it. By the time you get compassion, you're incredible. So the whole approach in Tantra, all this business of visualizing the Buddhas, like say we talk about Tara, for example. We can see very evidently, if you look at Tara, have a look at her, and then look at the Shakyamuni Buddha, they're very different looking, isn't it? You wouldn't see any relationship. And when we think Buddha, we usually think of Shakyamuni Buddha, the monk. Well, that's the aspect of the Buddha, the manifestation of Buddha mind, according to the first stages of practice, the harnessing of body, speech, and mind, junior school, high school, the wisdom wing. He's the manifestation of that level of practice, harnessed, controlled, disciplined body, speech, and mind. In the mind, joyful, but externally controlled, disciplined, effortless. Now look at Tara, completely different model, completely different. Look at her, And this is the bodhisattva style. So it's within Tantra, it's from the Vajrayana, and it's the Buddha, also the Buddha, but a very different presentation of the Buddha. So first of all, you have Buddha. The word Buddha actually refers to the all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-pervasive consciousness, the Dharmakaya, they call it. Technically, it's truth body, Dharmakaya. That's Buddha, actual Buddha. That's actual Buddha. Don't need bodies. They've gone beyond needing bodies, But then out of their immense compassion, because what has driven a person to become a Buddha is their immense compassion to help sentient beings. So of course you need a body because sentient beings can't communicate with you. You're too subtle. Unmanifest consciousness. No one can see that. So then there's Rupakaya, form body. So think of it as like a family tree, Dharmakaya, then Rupakaya, down, going down. Then you've got two of those, two kinds of form body. And the one that Shakyamuni is called the Nimanakaya, the emanation body. So there's millions of those, anything. Buddha by that point can manifest as anything, a tree, a dog, a cat, an ant, but they call the supreme Nimanakaya. This is the Shakyamuni, the Buddha who brings the Dharma into the world at this time, like a historical Buddha, the supreme Nimanakaya. But it's the emanation body, it's called. The Buddha can, by this point, a Buddha mind is capable of manifesting any form they like, But the Nimanakaya effectively is one. That's the Shakyamuni, we say. Then you got the two coming down from Buddha mind. You've got the Nimanakaya, emanation body. Then you have the enjoyment body. This is virtually from Tantra, broadly speaking, you can say. And there the Buddha in Tantric aspect is called Vajradhara, certainly in the Gelugpas. In different traditions, he's known as different things. Like in the Nyingmapas, they might talk about Samantabhadra, for example. But here we call him the Doji Chung or Vajradhara. And he's in this bodhisattva aspect, radiant, in his case, radiant blue body, usually it's often with a consort, sitting on a multicolored lotus. And this is just like visual languages, it's a visual language. And this is so the energy of this one is very different from the Buddha, as you can see. And this is the energy of Vajrayana, is to energize joy. They're utilizing the senses. You utilize the objects of the senses. This is the attitude of philosophy. And it's all about that. So these, Tara, so you've got Vajradhara, then under him you've got the 5 Buddha families. Amitabha, Akshobhya, these 5 Buddha families. And they're basically, each of them, the manifestation of the different purified delusions. So Amitabha, for example, is the manifestation of purified attachment. And then under him, all the Buddhas, like Tara, Chenrezig, hundreds of Buddhas in that family. Then the 5 families, each of them is a manifestation of purified delusion. And all the other Buddhas are under all these families. So really, it's just very clear. It's all psychology. It's all psychology. It is only psychology. And manifestations of different qualities that you, in Tantra, that you want to develop, such as wisdom, or purify. So, for example, in Amitabha's family, you've got Vajrayogini. She's this gorgeous red naked lady, and she's the manifestation of purified attachment. It's like a visual language. Everything about it is exactly that. This is the essence of the Tantric approach. You're utilizing the garbage. You're utilizing the garbage. And so one way these practices work, as they say in Tantra, for example, the practice of Tara, you would visualize it. You visualize Tara. She's like a mirror image of, you have to learn to know what she refers to, what she means. It's like a visual language. And then by practicing that, it's a method of becoming that yourself. So they talk about Tantra as being, you bring the end result, Buddhahood, your Buddhahood, into the present. It's like the ultimate in positive thinking. The ultimate in positive thinking. There's perfect Buddha, and by visualizing her, imagining her, identifying with her, you become that. It's a whole different approach. The first approach is you control your body, you control your speech. It's like you're ridding the mind of all the rubbish. Here, you're energizing your potential. So when you take empowerment, you commit yourself to see yourself as the Buddha, as Tara, for example. You commit yourself to hear all sound as mantra. You commit yourself to see the entire universe as the Pure Land of Tara. And you commit yourself to see every being as Tara. It's like you're lifting your game, They say we across the board in Buddhist teachings, we suffer because we have ignorance. We don't understand the ultimate nature of how things are. We misconceive things. That's the root of the problem. But they say in Tantra, we suffer because we see things as mundane. So we're trying to lift our mind, lift our view to see things as transcendental. You practice training your mind in that way. That's a cause to become that yourself. And it's utterly based on emptiness. Without understanding emptiness, even intellectually, Tantra is like a joke, It's like ridiculous. But without bodhicitta, it's also impossible. You have to have bodhicitta and emptiness. So in order to enter into the Vajrayana practices, certainly the Tsongkhapa tradition, we need to have the 3 principal aspects of the path. They're the preliminary practices. You have to have a minimum, and there's another way of framing the Lam Rim. So the first one of these is so-called renunciation, which is the combination of junior school and high school, where you have renounced suffering and its causes. So to have at least an appreciation of this is the first prerequisite for entering into practicing Tantra. The second is an appreciation for, an understanding of bodhicitta. Best would be to have them, but at least an appreciation, intellectual appreciation of them, and a sincere wish to activate them, to practice them, to have them, to accomplish them. Bodhicitta. And the third of these 3 is wisdom, to have an appreciation and understanding of emptiness. Because without these 3, it's like a joke. You can't possibly practice. You can't possibly, it's not impossible. It's impossible. You can't do it. But in daily life, as Swami would get us, it was like learning to, it's like positive thinking. It really is just positive thinking. It's like learning to see yourself, lift your view of yourself. It's like having self-respect. In our culture, we have incredible self-loathing, incredible lack of self-respect. And that's the irony of attachment, never satisfied. I'm nothing, I'm nobody, So we see ourselves as ugly, the whole planet. Everybody sees fault when they see their body. This is the irony of ego is we don't like ourselves. We find fault. We see things that are wrong. And no matter what we achieve, it's never enough. No matter what we accomplish, it's never enough. We always find mistakes. We always see something wrong. We're addicted to it. So the practice of Tantra in the daily life is apply, even just the idea of it is to know to identify with your goodness, with your beauty, with your good qualities, training yourself to see yourself differently. This is why when you commit to see yourself as a deity, as a cause of becoming one. So in ordinary psychological terms, it's marvelous. Instead of always, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, I'm a creep, always miserable, always guilty. This is what Lama could see when he first met Westerners. You have this self-respect, what you show is, and you can tell from how we look and walk, you show what's in your mind. I think in the most simple sense, we know this, if you kind of like, you're kind of all ugly, looking all ugly and smelly, and you want to go out somewhere, you dress up nicely. You dress up nicely, even you go to a nice party and you dress up nicely, even if you're vain, I don't care if it's attachment, but think about it. You go to a nice group of people where everybody's dressed up nicely, everybody's got a sense of self-respect. Kind of, oh, wow, it's really kind of clear. So identifying with the deity is incredible. Deity is just a word they use in Tantra for Buddha, that's all. Identifying yourself as a deity is so special. Because it's not meant to be some, okay, it's the aspect that shows like a green lady. You're not supposed to walk around with green paint on your body. To understand what Tara represents, each of the Buddhas represents something. But like I said, it's just psychological language, it's psychology. All these Buddhas are just manifestations of Buddhas. You either want virtues you want to accomplish or delusions you want to purify. Right there, in that sense, it's more radical, I mean, if we can apply even that level, it's already fantastic. In other words, instead of being always, at the first level, you're obsessed with your negativity, and it's necessary. You need to see the faults in the beginning and harness your body, harness your speech, harness your mind. You kind of got your hands deep in your misery, and it's a necessary part of our practice. Then when you get to the compassion wing, you're constantly trying to think of others. And when you get to the tantric one, it's both combined. But you've got this marvelous aspect, and you show to the world joy, because you've subdued your delusions, you've got virtue, and you've got joy. Your mind is now joyful. So it's a powerful offering to people when you think about it, to yourself and others. It's really a simple way to put it. It's like having some self-respect, seeing yourself in a good light. So who's Tara then? Well, there's different ways of talking about these Buddhas, but there's one they talk about, one way of dividing a Buddha into, has three essential qualities. There's compassion, the wish to benefit others. There's wisdom to know how to benefit others. But then there's the one they call like the ability to do so, power to do so. Well, Chenrezig, as we know, Avalokitesvara is one aspect of compassion. Manju, gentle voice. He holds a sword aloft, cutting through ignorance. Manjushri. Then Tara is an example of one that represents this power, action energy, cutting through the obstacles, making things happen, success, confidence. I mean, we all need that. And she's really popular as a practice, among Tibetan Buddhists. So in other words, okay, so when you look at Tara, you look at that green lady on the wall there, you think, what do you mean psychology? What are you talking about? She's a green lady, So of course, if it's a visual language, you need to learn the language, don't you? If you see a French word and you don't speak French, you don't know what it means. You learn the language, you learn the meaning. It's the same here. You learn what she represents. It's very specific, Every tiny thing she holds has a purpose, has a meaning. It's all part of giving the total meaning of who she is. Often they refer to her as what do they say? She's, because Drolma in Tibetan is a liberated. So she's often known as the liberator from the fears of samsara, meaning, and so fears of samsara is just a Buddhist word of talking about being caught up in delusions. When you're caught up in anger and jealousy and attachment and depression and ego grasping, you're driven by fear. You're absolutely hopeless, Cutting through those, she's courage, confidence, action energy. That's why she's got her leg halfway up. Her right leg is sort of resting on a multicolored lotus. She's not in the meditative pose. She's ready to hop up to help sentient beings. Action energy, success. And that's often depicted as female action, get things done. I mean, we all need that. So if you buy into that meaning, then when you do the practice, then that's what you're cultivating, isn't it? That's the point, So there's all these stories about how Tara developed out of the tears of Chenrezig or something. I mean, I'm not into those stories much. I don't know. But let's look at what it means, and how do you, what it means. And then in relation, let's say, to a teacher. Papan Rinpoche says the guru is the Buddha. If the guru is not the Buddha, then who is? It's a very strange concept to us. We've got to really look at this, Because often we look at these pictures and we'll go, well, when did she live? And we know Shakyamuni lived 2,000, a couple of thousand years ago. So who is Tara? Where did she live? Is she Australian? Is she Indian? Who is she? We want to kind of locate her in a place and time, But it's not like that for these Buddhas. You can have these nice origin stories, but actually it's not like that. It's more like she's what's that word? Jungian word, like an archetype. She's an archetype, And I like to use the example. Let's say it's like she's a depiction of a perfect being, but in a particular shape and style, So I think of the example, let's say you want to learn tennis. So you've got to, and someone will show me about a tennis player. So they'll do a drawing for you, won't they? They might do a drawing. They might do a composite on the computer. And what they do is they take, it could be a girl, could be a boy, it might be Federer, it might be Rafa just won the tennis, so maybe him. Or the Australian girl who just won, it could be male or female, doesn't matter. But you think about this, what they do is they get an ideal picture of a perfect tennis player, perfect muscle, perfect head, perfect right hand, exactly the way they hold the tennis racket, every tiny part of their body, everything would be a perfect depiction of a perfect tennis player. Now, think about this. That's just a picture, isn't it? It hasn't got a personality yet. It hasn't got a name on it. That's a generic tennis player. It's like an archetype of a tennis player. So what you need to find then is a person who fits that picture. So you go around, and I might end up finding Roger Federer, and I decide he's my. So I put a photo of Roger on my Tara. Do you understand what I'm saying? You put you personalize it for you. Tara Tara is a name given for a Buddha mind manifesting in a certain way, and people become their own Tara. So there are countless Taras. It's not as if she was one lady living in a country somewhere. So you find your Tara. So, you prefer maybe Serena. You decide that Serena's face is the one you put on that tennis player. She becomes your tennis player. Serena tennis player Serena. Your tennis guru. Roger might be mine. That's the way to say it. So Tara, you can do a nice picture of Tara, but whoever's your teacher, the one you choose in a human body, that's your Tara. She's your Tara. She's, and then when you visualize Manjushri, she becomes, your guru becomes Manjushri, and then you visualize Vajrayana, and your guru is Vajrayana. They take on that aspect to show you. So one is a footballer, one is a tennis player, one is a cricketer, So they show different aspects, but it's the same person. I find that helpful. I don't know if maybe it sounds weird to you. I have no idea. Because this is a subtler level of the Buddha. It's a depiction of the Buddha, and it's showing psychological qualities. Of course, it's not what we think of as psychology. We can't see Tara directly. When you realize emptiness, you're a bodhisattva, the Arya bodhisattvas can see her directly. They will see their guru in that aspect because their mind is so powerful. And it's clear we need a teacher. You can't play tennis without a teacher. It's like a joke. How can you possibly do that? It's not possible. I mean, it's very fascinating that in one of the commonest questions among people who get into a spiritual path is, why do I need a teacher? I mean, it's the oddest question. I can't even conceive of trying to become a Buddha. It's uncharted territory as far as we're concerned, without having a person who knows how to do it, showing you the way. How do you going to learn? It's very odd, You can't play tennis without a proper coach. You can't make a cake without a proper teacher. Everything we've learned since we were born has been learned by watching somebody or learning it from somebody who knows how to do it. It's really obvious. But I like to talk about the Guru in a very simple way that seems to me so real. As I used to say, we're all dying for love. We're all lonely and bereft and sad. That's why we've got delusions. We've got delusions because we are sad and lonely because we've got delusions. And one of the functions of delusions is dualistic. It cuts us off from others. The more delusions we have, the more separate from others. This is a really clear point. So we're lonely, bereft, sad, depressed, angry, jealous, paranoid, no self-esteem, arrogant. You name all of those qualities. And when they prevail, we are separate from everybody. We need love. So what a person who is embodying Buddha qualities for you, if a person who is a Buddha, and you go and you choose, you check out the teachers, you want to become a Buddha, you check them out, and you finally connect with a certain person. The key element is affection, the key element is the heart. Whether it's your tennis player, your music teacher, anybody who's had a mentor never forgets them. Person at school who helped you. It's the connection of the human heart is the real quality. It's so clear. It's not as intellectual, You got to, and because we're all dying for love, which is a function of attachment, but we're dying for connection. Then to have a person that you have chosen, having checked carefully, that is the Buddha for you, this is tremendous, You'd never be lonely. Your heart will be full of that person, wanting to please them. This is perfect. You're using all the qualities of being an ordinary person and putting this energy into a person that you want to become like. When you're sitting there playing the piano, even your teacher's not there, you're thinking about your teacher. You're remembering her advice. You're wanting to please her. You can't wait to see her again to show her what you've accomplished. We have got a human heart. We need to use it. And this is the interesting point. You see, that delusions, attachment, anger, jealousy, all these things, they cut us off from others. We are isolated, lonely, separate, or arrogant, and, there's no sense of connection with others. And we've got lots of attachment and aversion, always finding fault in others. So you never learn anything. If all you do is find fault in your tennis coach, you will never learn tennis, ever. You'll never learn tennis. The only way we can learn anything is by having an open heart. So if you're going to open your heart to somebody, you'd better choose them very carefully. Our trouble is we have an open heart and then we dump our heart on some idiot who doesn't, who's not worthy of our heart, and then we get abused. That's our mistake because of attachment. But we have a human heart. And that's utterly linked to virtue. When you are virtuous, when you're kind and loving and compassionate and generous, your heart is wide open. It's the nature of virtues. It's the nature of positive qualities. The nature of delusions is you're cut off and separate, either arrogant or low self-esteem, but just separate. You can hear and see nothing. You can't grow. So they talk about devotion. Guru devotion. It's a marvelous word, devotion. It means open heart. When you've got a heart that's open, the knowledge can flood in. It's so logical, It's not mystical. If your heart is open to somebody, the knowledge from their mind will come flooding into your mind. As Lama Yesi said, the Buddha's dead. The Four Noble Truths will only become real for you when you hear them from the mouth of a person, and I'm adding the words here, whom you have chosen as your Buddha. And you will learn very, very quickly. So they talk about in all the texts, like in a very medieval, it sounds like hellfire and brimstone, you know. But if you analyze the meaning of Guru devotion, it's so logical. Your heart is open. When your heart is open, and that you need to open it to a person you've checked, have confidence, as the Bonka says, you're going to end up like that person, so choose them very carefully. Then you commit, and you'll become like that person very quickly. You'll become that Buddha very quickly. You're ready to hear. Your heart is open to the advice. It's logical, you know. So choose your guru very carefully. Don't just give your heart to anybody. It's so important. You know? And then because we are human, we'll think about them and want to please them. And this is where, in the Tibetan tradition, where the practice of Vajrayana comes in as a very powerful part, a really powerful part of our daily practice, where you take the empowerment into Tara, for example. You're permitted to practice Tara. That means you're permitted to visualize yourself as Tara. And there's these technical practices you do that you visualize first out there, and then at some point you visualize absorbing Tara into you, and you know, dissolve into emptiness, blah, 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 and then you manifest yourself as Tara. It's this gradual process of becoming that Guru Buddha yourself. And that's where your devotion plays in day-to-day life in your practice. You see Tara as your guru, because it makes it personal for you. You visualize Buddha, you visualize Tara, you visualize Vajrayana, whoever. It's like this generic image of a Buddha in that aspect to purify attachment, for example, Vajrayana. But in your mind, it's got your guru's energy. And it might be male or female, it doesn't matter. You know? It's their mind manifesting as Vajrayana to help you become Vajrayana. And it makes it, instead of this abstract picture of a red lady, it's your Lama's mind, whom you adore and whom you want to please and whom you want to become like. This is, the heart is nourished. Your heart is then nourished, you know. This is the function of Guru devotion, I tell you. It's very practical. I mean, Lama Yeshe passed away in 1983 or something. It's a long time ago, right? I think of him in present tense. Doesn't matter. He's not, the body's not there. Doesn't matter. You know? This is my first Lama. Anyway, I'm chatting away here. Anybody got any questions? If all this just stays intellectual, your heart is cold as ice. Nothing will grow. Nothing will grow. The heart has to open. It's a simple way of putting that virtue has to prevail. Love, intelligence, compassion, humility, devotion. They are the virtues that have to prevail. Then we are ready. And we will receive knowledge very quickly. Any questions? Online, this is one there. Andrea, yes, talk to me, sweetheart.
Thank you, Venerable Robina. I have a question because I'm practicing the Lama Tsongkhapa daily, and I'm also doing a lot of times medicine Buddha practice for my father and everyone. And I have, how do you say, sometimes it is said that in these, when we are practicing, that may I be reborn there and may I be reborn there. And I also have a kind of goal where I would like to be reborn. And I have kind of difficulties when I'm doing another practice and doing this, that, oh, may I be reborn in this Buddha field or that Buddha field. How can I manage this? Do you understand my question?
What do you mean manage?
So I feel not good when I'm, for example, doing another practice and there is in the text, oh, may I be reborn in that Buddha field. Although I would like.
Are you sort of saying, how do I decide which one?
No, I've already decided where I want to go, but still.
What's the problem?
when we are doing, for example, another practice, and it says that, oh, may I be reborn in the other Buddha field.
Oh, I see. No, I know.
I
but that's
feel
not-
not.
No, I know. I understand your point now.
I feel kind of I'm lying. Still, I would like to do that practice too, a medicine Buddha or.
No, I understand. And so
okay.
this is why also when you do each practice, you know, okay, I understand your point exactly. So the fact is, we need all of these Buddhas, don't we? We need to you have Vajrayana to purify attachment. We need Chenrezig to get compassion. We need all of them. We need all the Buddhas. We need all the energies because they're all representing different parts of us. So we do need all of them. So of course, in one life, we will choose our own yidam, or we'll choose the pure land we'd like to get born in. You know, it's true, and that's okay. It's fine. But there's no harm in doing the others as well. You know, it's okay to say it. It's fine. I mean, we're putting seeds in the mind for countless eons of future lifetimes. So there's plenty of pure lands we can get born in the future. This doesn't mean you can't have your favorite. Doesn't matter. It's okay. It's no contradiction.
Okay, thank you.
It's really all right. It's really okay. I mean, it can only be useful, but in your mind, you know that if you're praying every day to go to Amitabha's Pure Land, no, it's my goal. I'm going to get born Amitabha's Pure Land. That's what I say, you know. But I mean, when I do Vajrayana, I'll pray to go there.
It's okay.
I remember in Lama Zopa's death book, he talks about Amitabha's Pure Land being accessible to ordinary people. I think, well, that's good. I'm an ordinary person. But then one of my friends, one nun, he whispered to her, he said, no, best to pray to go to Vajrayani's Pure Land, more bliss. So it depends on who you like, you know. It depends on our connections. It's okay. There's no contradiction. Don't worry.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Think big. You can have your different emanations go to the different ones, okay?
Yeah, that's why I also talk
That's
about
right.
it. Yes,
Exactly.
it's very
There you
good. Thank
go.
you.
Perfect. Okay. Who else? People, questions? Anybody, any questions here?
Venerable, we have one in the chat written directly to me. What does it mean to get the Green Tara initiation from Jado Rinpoche versus getting an empowerment? It's a person who prefers to write it in chat. So what does
Okay, no, there's different words in Tibetan. I don't know. There's one type of thing, for example, Jado Rinpoche just now gave, did the ceremony. It was a particular practice of Tara. It was not a full empowerment. You didn't receive the different initiations during it. These particular initiations. It was a permission to practice it. That was all. That's often, I think, referred to in Tibetan as a jenang. That's the answer. I hope that satisfies. Who else is there?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Who else? That's it. That's the speaker, isn't it? That's the speaker.
Yeah.
Who else is there? Anybody else speaking? Holding the speaker.
Venerable Robina.
Okay. Any other questions, people?
I have a question.
Yes.
So if I understand you correctly, to make it more practical, I could visualize Chenrezig being His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Absolutely, precisely.
And for every Buddha, I would choose an actual living person.
Your Lama, basically.
Yes.
Your Lamas.
Yes.
So that's exactly, of course, exactly. That's exactly right. That's the whole point. And you think about it, you know, as soon as you say Chenrezig, and then as soon as you say His Holiness, if you like His Holiness, it immediately makes it personal, you know, because this is the point when, you know, we've all got a different, like Dalai Lama's got a certain face in this form, a human, he's got this shape and style, his voice is very vivid, isn't it? And then when you think of him though, you got to visualize him in your practices as the Sambhogakaya. So then he would be looking like Chenrezig in that subtle light body, you know. So you can think of it that turns around the other way, you know. You think of Dalai Lama as the Sambhogakaya. Absolutely, that's exactly right. Exactly, darling. Who else? I mean, I hardly really talked about Tantra much. I just said a few words. So are there any questions? Do you want some clarity? You want to go
Anton, Lamala, I have a little question. How we can combine 3 levels of practice according to teachings of Tsongkhapa in one session of practice?
Well, you must, I mean, not just in one session, in one day, you know. I mean,
yes, how we can combine this?
But it's different levels. One, you know, today you might decide to control your mouth and not speak rudely about somebody. You just practiced, you know, junior school. Then another time in the day, you might look at your mind and see anger, and you work with it and you analyze it. That's practicing high school. Then another time when you are patient and you reach out and are kind to somebody, that's practicing the compassion wing. And another time you say a mantra, and that's Tantra. I mean, you just got to know where all the teachings fit. Every single second of the day, you're practicing all of them. Of course you are.
Okay, thank you.
But you have to understand the Lamrim, psychologically what it represents, controlling your body speech, controlling your mind, practicing compassion, and then, this one of the mantras and all this business and seeing yourself as a deity.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Cool.
Venerable, there's a follow-up question about the Jado Rinpoche question.
Yeah.
So the question was, what does it mean? What does permission to practice mean? And is it permission to attend the Green Tara Puja and read the sadhana?
No, to attend is permission. It's just, okay, you can practice, okay, according to the level, there's 4 levels of Tantra. They talk roughly speaking, 4 levels of utilizing and transforming delusions. The first one is called Kriya Tantra or Action Tantra, and Tara, Chenrezig, Manjushri, many of them are in that one. And you don't need an empowerment you don't need permission in order to practice, but receiving it makes it extra powerful because you get the blessing, you get the transmission from the Lama. It's more powerful. There are some practices in the 4th level, highest yoga tantra they call it, that you can't practice without an empowerment. So permission just means you just, start getting the blessing from the Lama. It just makes it a little bit extra nice. I hope that answers.
Yes, the person wishes to be anonymous and writing me directly, but the person is happy. Yes.
Pardon, the person what?
The person is happy.
Thank you, that's good. Who else then? Who else is there? Questions, anybody? No questions. Well, I mean, we've got a whole hour to go. You better start asking me some questions. Because I'm not going to say much more unless you ask me some questions. I mean, I don't know what to say otherwise.
I'll ask a question.
Yeah, come on then.
What if I don't have a Lama?
That's not really a question.
Well, how?
Ask me a question, babe. Put it differently.
If I'm doing the Tara practice,
Yes.
which is regular practice,
Yes.
my understanding is if I don't have a Lama, I kind of see Tara as the kind of emanation of my future Lama. Is that the right approach?
Okay, no. Okay, no. Yes, but no. So what I mean is, okay, there are different forms in which a Buddha mind will manifest for the sake of sentient beings. And then when you become a Buddha, you will be able to manifest as an ordinary form, like a human being. You'll be born as a human being, a nice girl or boy, but you'll be a Buddha, but you'll act like a regular human girl and boy, so you can help others. But you'll also, for the sake of the highly evolved Arya bodhisattvas who've realized emptiness, you'll be able to manifest in the Sambhogakaya for their benefit as well. So it's just the way, it's just your capability. So you're practicing, when you're visualizing Shakyamuni, if you like, you're practicing perfecting the first 2 stages of practice where you control your body, speech, and mind and become the Nirmanakaya. And when you do Tara, you're perfecting your mind and transform and practicing becoming the Sambhogakaya. Now, it just helps to have the teacher, that's all, because it makes it human and open. I mean, if you've got, okay, it's like there's one prayer written by some yogi as a prayer of praise to Tara. So obviously this yogi had direct access to a Buddha who looked like Tara in the light body. So he talked directly to Tara. Tsongkhapa had his direct teachings from Manjushri, the Sambhogakaya form of the Buddha of wisdom. So that if you're advanced, you can see the Buddha in that form, and it's personal for you. So for us, because we can't see that form, it just helps to have a human being in the so-called Nirmanakaya, whom we can also imagine is now manifesting in the Sambhogakaya for my benefit. It just makes it human and personal. It just makes it more real for you. That's all. Now, if you don't have at this moment, you haven't chosen. I mean, you think maybe you appreciate the Dalai Lama. Do you appreciate the Dalai Lama? Good enough then. He will do. Come on, babe. You see my point?
Yeah.
And then, you know, maybe you aspire one day. But this is also an interesting question. How do you get a teacher? How do you recognize? How do you know? We always ask these questions. And it's sort of like, it's something interesting. As a person I know, many people actually, who have been sort of looking for a teacher for years. They say like, they talk about it like that, looking for a teacher for years. Well, no, never mind that. It's just interesting. I mean, you know, it all sounds a bit romantic sometimes. Like there's a woman I know who is the mother of a student, and she went around the world literally searching for a guru, right? And she finally, I think I heard the story that when she finally met this particular Lama, and he sort of almost like effectively said to her, where have you been? I can't be waiting for you, you know? So you get nice stories like that. Or I remember one woman went to Lama Yeshe and said, I want you to be my Lama. He said, no, I'm not your Lama, go to that Lama. So these Lamas can see, they've got clairvoyance, so they can see where you belong. They can see the past karmic connection, you know. So, but also it can be that maybe you're arrogant and you've always got a concept in your head about what a Lama is, and you always find fault. So you'll never find one until the cows come home. Because the Lama, whom the person you have connection with from, and it's got to be a strong karmic connection from past lives. I mean, there might be some weird looking, you know, person who nobody is low down in the hierarchy of the monastery, and he picks his nose and blinks, but he might be your guru, you know, and you'll see him as the Buddha. It doesn't have to be looking like the Dalai Lama. You understand what I'm saying? We kind of don't have an idealized picture. It's really the person in a human form whom you have a karmic connection with. Because I mean, we only meet people we have karmic connection with. You know, you go to your mother, you've got a strong karmic connection with that woman. The person you fall in love with is the person you have a karmic connection with. Well, the same with a guru, you know, a human being who's in a form that you feel close to. Then the thing is, I mean, then the job of developing this devotion. This is difficult for us. This is not what you're asking now. I'm just saying more things. So sometimes it's easy. And I know when I met Lama Yeshe, it sort of felt easy to start seeing him as the guru. I didn't know the right things to do. I didn't know protocols. I didn't know how to behave. I was badly behaved, all those things. But it was not difficult for me to think of him as the Buddha. But sometimes it can be quite difficult, you know. So you've got to practice this. When they talk about, this is where it gets difficult. They talk about developing pure view. All pure view means is you don't find fault. So now, like, for example, Lama Yeshe, he would shout at me, but I didn't find fault. I didn't mind. It just seemed to work. It seemed to be okay, you know. Whereas somebody else, if their Lama shouted and they want to sue them. I mean, you hear this all the time. People come and this Lama did this and he did that. And, now he's horrible and I've given him up. So it's a very interesting point. And it's not a comfortable one in our culture to not find fault, because we think it's just being we think it's being lazy. We think it's being kind of just like people getting away with something. Because as soon as a person does something naughty, you've got to call them, you have them accountable. So it seems like you're just letting them get off the hook if you don't find fault. So to develop pure view is quite complicated for us in the West, because it's sort of very political for us. You've got to be politically active, and everybody does something wrong, you've got to call them on it. They've got to be sued. They've got to be taken to the police. You can't do this. So it's not a comfortable thing, but we've got to really understand the meaning. That's why I always use the example. Back in the 70s, when I was living in England, Lama Yeshe's first center in England is Manjushri Institute, and the Geshe that Lama Yeshe invited to come and be the resident teacher there was a fellow student of their own root Lama. So eventually that Geshe took that center. I mean, some awful thing happened. So this is 40 years ago. And that Lama now, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso, has started the group of people, the new Kadampa tradition. So there he is. He went and took, so there's Lama Yeshe, my main Lama. And then when I was at the center, I took an empowerment. I took an initiation from Geshe Kelsang Gyatso. So I considered him to be one of my teachers, one of my gurus, you know. And then he takes Lama Yeshe's center. So then you think, well, what am I supposed to think about this? It seems like he did something wrong. And I'm not finding fault here. I'm just saying a fact. He did, in fact, take the center. That's a fact. So what am I supposed to think like this? It's not easy for us, you know. Well, this is where we have to really study the teachings. It doesn't make any sense if we don't study the teachings. And we don't mostly study the teachings. So it's very confusing to us. Forget the Tantric teachings, but the bodhisattva teachings. The very first level of practice, basically you behave nicely. You don't kill, you don't steal, you don't lie. There's no wriggle room. And that's the image of the Buddha. He's behaving nicely. And that's what we want. And we need that. It's encouraging. But by the time we get to the bodhisattva path, and you look at the bodhisattva vows, for example, it's much more profound. Because the logic of the bodhisattva path is that now, because you're so harnessed, you've harnessed your body, speech, and mind, and you could argue even that person's really subdued their delusions. The bodhisattva level enables you to do what looks like a negative action, but because, and only because, it's beneficial for that sentient being. So it's a bit like tough love. Your mother really does love you and you're naughty, but you haven't listened to her instructions. So now she's got to be tough with you. Go to your room. You think mummy's angry, but she's not angry. She's totally wanting only the best for you, but for your benefit, she shows a certain angry aspect. We have to understand that possibility. And that's hard for us in our culture. So that's the bodhisattva level. In fact, in the bodhisattva path, the vows, you have a vow that permits you to break an earlier vow to harm others if it's beneficial for sentient beings. I mean, you can't play with that, but that's pretty profound. And when you understand the bodhisattva path and how there can be beings like that who are highly evolved, who have clairvoyance, who have enormous wisdom, they're totally capable of doing things that look wrong, but because it's based on compassion and wisdom. That's hard for us to understand. We don't get that. We don't have that idea in the ordinary world. And that's just the bodhisattva teachings. So without understanding that possibility, this idea of someone doing something wrong, but it being a good action, doesn't make sense to us. So if I've got devotion in Lama Yeshe, this is the point, you know, I chose Lama Yeshe. I like to think of it that way. We choose our guru. We don't think of it as some passive thing, you know. I checked, I looked at, I checked on this person. I checked up. And I chose him. I decided he would be my Lama. I decided he would be the one who embodies Buddhahood for me and would show me. And I gave him, basically, I think of it this way, I gave him permission to show me my mind. That's the job of a Lama, to show me my mind. I gave him permission to do that. I remember the first meeting when I, you know, basically committed to being his disciple. Already the work started. I was shocked by a certain thing he said that got me to see my mind. I was shocked. But I'd given him permission to do that. I was glad. Lama Zopa the same. He's also my teacher. One time I wanted to see Lama Zopa in France at the center there, and the nun took me to his office, her office where Lama Zopa was. And I could see him in there. And she went in and said, Rinpoche, Robina wants a quick word. He ignored. 4 times she said it. He ignored. So she walked out and shrugged her shoulders. Now, if I'd been offended, you know, who does he think he is? He can't be a real Lama. He doesn't see me when I want. How dare he be very rude? Which is how the first response we have, you know, little girl inside us. But if I'd given Lama Zopa permission, by accepting him as my guru, I permitted him to show me my mind. So if I trusted his wisdom, and I did, I learned there must have been something in that. I didn't need to see him. Obviously, something to learn, to look in my mind about. I mean, ordinary sportsmen have this. I mean, I remember my Mr. Lee, my Kung Fu teacher. I went to 6 classes a week. If he taught 7, I would have gone to 7. I went to 6. He's not stupid. He could see I wanted his Kung Fu. He was not stupid. And there I was, every class. Oh, well, she must want Kung Fu. So he gave me his Kung Fu, but he pushed me to the limit. I was honored when he shouted at me. I didn't want to go and sue him because I wanted his Kung Fu. So that makes sense to me, you know. So Lama Yeshe was tough. Lama Zopa was tough, but that's what I wanted. So it's not just a half pie, ooey gooey, oh, the guru sitting at the guru's feet and they sort of stroke you, be sweet and nice. No, it depends on what you need, you know. But I have to have trust. I have to have trust first. I've got to trust their wisdom and then I permit them. So that's difficult sometimes in the West. We like to find fault. And this is the interesting point. I mean, this is the logic of why we would want to develop what they call pure view. So, for example, Geshe Kelsang Gyatso taking Lama Yeshe's center, and now he's also gone against His Holiness and he started his own organization. That's not criticism, that's fact. So, what am I trying to do? What's my job? I'm trying to become a Buddha. I'm trying to purify my mind and get rid of delusions. I'm trying to choose to have virtuous thoughts as opposed to have non-virtuous thoughts. That's what being a Buddhist finally means. So there's this person whom I have decided is the Buddha, taking the center of another one of my lamas. Now, on the face of it, that's a negative action, on the face of it. But okay, I ask myself the question, am I clairvoyant? No. Can I see definitely that Geshe Kelsang Gyatso is not a Buddha? I can't see that. Therefore, could he be a Buddha? Yes. End of discussion. I'll leave it there. He's still in my lama. I leave it there. I don't find fault. Now, what's the advantage? The point is, what's the advantage to me of doing that? One, do I want to have deluded thoughts? No. Do I want to have virtuous thoughts? Yes. That's the conclusion. So keep my mind pure. It's very logical, but it's not comfortable in the West. We have to be politically active and find fault and sue people and, you know, like that, you know. It's not easy, but it's got logic to it. But it's not easy unless we've thought it through carefully. Because if I didn't trust Mr. Lee's Kung Fu, when he shouted at me, then I'd be offended and would walk out. So I obviously hadn't done enough choosing. I hadn't looked at him carefully enough, but I decided I wanted his Kung Fu. So I committed, and so he could see I committed. So he used his skill as a Kung Fu teacher to show me his Kung Fu. I was honored. So we have to work on it in our minds. It doesn't come, it's not just some gooey sentimental feeling. You have to make a decision. It's clear and logical. And don't have a conception of what you think of. As soon as we say the word Lama, in the West, we're so naive. We visualize, you know, a male, a man in a red dress. I bet you, every time I said Lama to all you people, I bet you visualize a male, a monk, a Tibetan monk, didn't you? Do you understand my point? That's what we think a Lama means. It's a naive, it's an absurd idea. Lama is a Tibetan word that refers to a spiritual teacher. It could be a nun, it could be a layperson, it could be a girl, it could be a boy, and these days it could be a non-binary person. Who knows what people now manifest as? Lama means spiritual teacher. It's equivalent to the term guru. So we have to decide. That means we have to, you know, want every day, if we do want a teacher, and if we have a karmic connection with a certain person, which is very much part of it, well, maybe meet them one day, you know, and that's part of the course of meeting them, you know. Are there any questions about that? Yes, sweetheart, yes.
So once you have committed to a teacher, actually, you're saying that the teacher can do whatever he wants.
I can't quite hear, sweetheart. Say it again,
Sorry,
Christine.
yes. So when you have found a teacher and you commit to the teacher,
Yes.
the teacher can basically do anything, and you have no, I mean, everything is okay that he does. There is no way he can do something that's wrong.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it, isn't it? I didn't say those words, did I? That's sort of a bit like, it's okay, it's a really good point, but I want to look at the words you've used, and that's a deduction you've made from what I said,
Yeah.
isn't it? That's your deduction, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Right, okay. I couldn't use words like that. I couldn't speak that way. I can't, but let me see if I can answer you so I can not, you know, honor what you said. Mr. Lee, he was just my Kung Fu teacher. He shouted at me. Now, shouting is not good behavior, is it? Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? Now, why did I not mind? What was the main thing that caused me to not mind if he shouted at me? What was the main thing that happened in that relationship that caused me not to be upset?
You thought you could learn something from him.
Huh?
And you
I
thought
decided.
you decided.
No, I decided, Christine, and this is the thing, I checked on his Kung Fu. I'm not talking about him as being a spiritual teacher. He might have been cheating on his wife. That's not my business. I decided I want his Kung Fu. I checked his Kung Fu. I checked him the way he taught the children. I checked the way he taught other people. I checked his reputation. They're all the things you check up on. Then I decided I wanted his Kung Fu because I was confident. And then I can tell you, even when he shouted, I knew he meant well. It was his method for helping me learn Kung Fu. But I had to trust that. I had to trust that. I had to trust that. So Lama Zopa ignoring me this one day. ignoring me. I would tell you this, that if I were not his disciple, there was no way in the world he'd just ignore somebody. But because I'd asked for that relationship, I trusted his wisdom. I'd done my checking. I was confident that he had the wisdom to see my mind, which is what a spiritual teacher is. So then it was clear to me, if I had confidence in him, that his ignoring me was a teaching for me. It was easy for me to do that. So I'm not saying, therefore he can do what he likes, therefore it doesn't matter, therefore I wasn't, that's very sort of a bit on absolute somehow. Now, they say in the teachings, Jada Rinpoche just recently, in those very simple teachings he gave, there's different levels of this relationship. The first one, I think he said in the Hinayana level, you see them as equal to them, you have respect for them. The next level of sutra teaching, you see them as equal to a Buddha. And the most advanced one is the Vajrayana, which is in the sense that the context here is that you see them as the Buddha. And he said it very simply. He said, of course, if they say to do this and it's not Dharma, if they do something that doesn't look like Dharma, you're perfect, you should discuss it with them. And you don't have to do it, but you'd have a good reason not to, but to not lose faith in them. He said you would lose if you lost faith in them. Now, if you were, for example, we all love reading the stories about Mapa and Milarepa, you know, I mean, I don't know if you know those stories, but then Mapa, you know, he was an outrageous Vajrayana yogi. He was this incredible being. He saw the mind of Milarepa and he put him through the hoops. He made him build this thing. He made him build that, pull it down, build it again. He chucked him out of the teachings. He behaved terribly again towards him. But Milarepa had confidence in Mapa, that Mapa knew what was best for him. So Milarepa never found fault. Now, even Mapa's wife apparently got a bit upset with Mapa, said he was too tough on Milarepa and told him to back off and go easy, you know. So it's a very powerful concept that there was a mutual agreement there. And there was faith on Milarepa's side. And in a sense, you could argue that if Mapa could see that Milarepa didn't have much faith, he wouldn't have done that if he is a wise person. Lama Zopa, if I were not his disciple, would not have ignored me. But because he could see my mind and I trusted him, it was this mutual relationship, a mutual. So, because if you're a wise Lama, a wise spiritual practitioner, you treat the person according to their needs, like a good mother would. The mother might say no firmly to one child, but be gentle to another. But if it is something you can't do, you tell them. It's very simple. But keep the mind pure. Listen, that's not a contradiction. You see what I'm saying? It's not some kind of passive relationship where you're sort of, which is the classic one of having it. Often, I'm not saying you're suggesting that, but it's not a question of just doing whatever. Otherwise, you're blah blah. You do what it's up to your capability. You know. It's a reasonable relationship. It's an intelligent relationship.
You don't stop thinking. You don't stop thinking.
That would be terrible ignorance. But you could put it this way. You could argue. I mean, there's a discussion with my friends on here. Where is she? She's not here. I can't see her. About, you know, one. I forget the story. Where's Ruana? She was there. Is she still there? She had a story. What was that story, Ruana? Are you still there?
I'm here. Which story?
Tell us that story about somebody's head fell off and all that business. What's that story? She's got lots of stories. What was the one about the head cut off? Tell us that story, Ioana.
Which story, Venerable Robina?
Well, and you sent it in an email to me and asked me a question. Somebody's head cut off and then they put the head back on again.
No, I wasn't.
Was that you?
No, it wasn't me.
Oh God, who was it?
Now you got us curious.
I know. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. I mean, it sounds a difficult one, but I think, you know, I really think that's why I like to use Kung Fu example, Master Lee. I mean, it was just, I know from reading about American coaches of footballers, they adore their coach. The coach will scream at them, but there's this agreement. Now, if you're a victim, if you're a passive and a victim and you get manipulated, that's a different discussion. That's why we should choose our gurus carefully. Christine, this is the real powerful point. We have to be grown up. We have to decide. If I hadn't decided, oh, Mr. Lee is a great Kung Fu teacher. Oh, wow. It's attachment. It's rubbish. Then I'm opening myself to be abused. And same with a spiritual teacher. We have to be grown-ups, you know, and choose carefully. Then we're grown up in the relationship. It's really powerfully important. Milarepa was ready. Milarepa was ready to build 9 towers and not go to the teachings, but continue to have confidence in Mapa's methods. That's incredible. It's not a victim relationship. If it is, it's disgusting. So that's why I like to emphasize, we are the one who chooses. We are the one who decides to follow. That's what I continually try to show. We are the boss in the relationship. I choose to do what Lama Zopa says, not, oh, I must do what Lama Zopa says. That's revolting. It's a very powerful job to be in a position of a disciple, not weak. It's such a wrong view, Christine. It's a very grown-up thing. Do you understand?
I do.
Good.
Thank you.
We're the boss, you know. We are the boss. No one can force us to do anything. This is a really important point. Thank you for that. What else? Anybody? Somebody else?
Jill has a question.
Who?
Jill?
Who is it? Carol? Carol and Jill. Hello, Jill.
Hi, hello, Venerable. Nice to see you.
Yes.
Yes, the question is the whole sort of subject. So, if with the Tantra, it always seems very mysterious, and people talk about having, you know, around Jamyang, people will talk about having this empowerment and going to this initiation, and that they've done this. And I can never understand how you get to the point where you're eligible to do that. Is that something is that something you would discuss with your teacher? Or
not necessarily, darling. No, this is why. No, this is what I said before, very briefly. Let me tell you again. The prerequisites for you being ready to take an empowerment are 3. And it's basically you're familiar with the path. 1, the first stages of the Lam Rim are that you've got renunciation, that you understand the 4 noble truths, you understand Buddha's teaching on suffering, you know the Buddha's teachings on causes, which means you understand karma and the delusions, and you've got confidence this is the path you want. Well, honey child, that means you have an appreciation for renunciation. That's the first prerequisite.
yes,
Then the next one is you have an appreciation for bodhichitta.
yes,
And the next one is you have an appreciation for emptiness. Honey child, they are the 3 prerequisites that if you have them, you are ready to enter into an empowerment. So clearly you would discuss it with somebody and learn, because it's all fairly new information to us. You could ask questions and find out and ask advice, but they're the 3 prerequisites, darling.
okay,
You can check yourself.
thank
Do you
you.
understand?
Yes, thank you.
Good, good. Who else? Yes, Carol.
Thank you, Venerable.
Good.
Being as we're allowed many lamas, and many lamas have different qualities, can we have lamas from different lineages?
Of course you can. I mean, yes, of course. I mean, I'm nothing special, but I've got lamas. My main lamas are Lama Zopa, Lama Yeshe, and the Gelugpas. I've got many Gelugpa lamas, mostly. Many teachers, I say, are my teachers. But I've also got His Holiness Sakya Trinzen and the Sakyapas. I haven't got any Kagyu lamas, but Songsa Khyentse Rinpoche is one of my gurus. There's no question. As soon as I went to one of his teachings, boom, right there, I knew, I recognized. I think he's Kagyu Nyingma. I'm not quite sure. So yes, of course you can, sweetheart.
Thank
You've got
you.
different connections with different teachers and different traditions. Of course you can. Clear. Absolutely, darling.
Thank
No
you.
question. Good. Come on, who else?
Venerable, there was a question in the chat earlier
Yeah.
today. Terry, maybe you wish to ask Terry? No.
Sure, okay, I ask.
Yes, sweetheart. Go, Terry.
Is the Tara goddess or a god, is it a male or female or
Who, sweetheart? Who?
Tara, is it
Tara,
a female
she's
or
female.
male?
She's female. The one behind Tara. See Tara in the picture there? There's a green lady behind her. That's Tara. She's female.
Only female.
Tara is female.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good, darling. Okay. Yes. Who else is there? Who has questions? Anybody here has questions? Nothing. Yes, go, Tom.
It's related to seeing someone not necessarily as the guru, but seeing their qualities that they represent some qualities
Yes.
that you like.
That's right, exactly.
And they may not necessarily be like a spiritual teacher.
Yes.
Is that not wrong? But is that to see, so like say Michael Jordan or something,
Yes.
or you see his determination?
Absolutely. I
or-
think it's amazing to see people that way. And we learn. I mean, absolutely, this is perfect. We look at human beings, we see examples, we see people who are generous or loving or kind or intelligent or good at, absolutely. And it's a wonderful way to see the world. Then your mind is really open to people and seeing good qualities and wanting to become like that. That's a fantastic quality to have. Absolutely. I mean, that's just a good way to live your life, isn't it? It's how we learn from people, isn't it? Absolutely. Totally, yeah. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something where I'm not like treating them as, seeing them as like a deity. And
No, I don't think so. No, I think that's perfect. I mean, the thing is that it's the key to success is whether there's not much attachment. There was just attachment. When you live in La La Land, you see a fantasy. That's only going to make you unhappy. But if you see a genuinely good appreciation of people's qualities, it's wonderful. That's an amazing way to live life. Wow, fantastic. I think it's good. What else, people? Yes, Cyril.
Yes, Venerable. This is a question that I've never been able to really answer it or clear to me. The teachings, they say that any sentient being, all sentient beings have the Buddha nature, and any sentient being can become a Buddha. And I just don't understand, for example, how can, a mouse understand emptiness? So how
I understand that. I think the point is a perfect question, but I think it's not saying that every sentient being at this moment can become a Buddha. Everybody might have the potential to play piano, but if you don't find a teacher, if you don't find a piano, if you don't find music written on a piece of paper so you can learn it, your potential is there, but it's latent. So in that sense, this is where the teachings in the Buddhist view, the Mahayana, are very profound in helping us understand the very fundamental nature of mind. And this is the key, Cyril, when we can understand, like technically, that as far as the Buddha is concerned, afflictions, delusions, ego grasping, attachment, anger, they are in the mind and they run the show for the vast majority of sentient beings. But this is the entire point that Buddha makes, is that they're not at the core of our being and therefore can be removed. That's implying that every mind has Buddha nature. And the ultimate Buddha nature is that every mind is empty of intrinsic existence. That's the meaning of Buddha nature. Because delusions are adventitious, that's why we can remove them. And when you've removed them and perfected the goodness, that is what Buddha is. But we don't all possess the conditions now. That's the major difference. Do you see?
Got it. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good. Okay. What else? Yes.
The-
Nina's got a question. Hang on.
Good,
I
excellent.
I have a request, whether if we have some minutes left, whether we could, you could lead us through a Tara practice tonight.
Okay. Yeah, we can do a simple version. We can do a simple one. Okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah. Any more questions?
This,
Hello?
there's
Go.
one.
Go, Lars.
The anonymous person writes me directly. I was told that I took refuge and renewed refuge, that those I took refuge with were then my teachers. Then there also the question about, do I need to request to be a student? And we discussed that this Saturday, but maybe you can say shortly again.
Okay, so listen, okay. There's different, as I said before, just very briefly to Christine, there's different levels of this business of a teacher being the Buddha for us, but being a teacher person, someone. So then, okay. Yes, so when we do anything formal, like take refuge, take the 8 Mahayana precepts, take bodhisattva vows, absolutely certainly taking empowerment within Tantra, we would check on that person and decide if we wanted that person to take refuge or whatever it is with that person, because we've decided they've got all the qualities that we would want in a Buddha. So in a sense, you could say, just roughly speaking, you'll see that person's representing the Buddha for you. So the best way to see them would be as a Buddha. That would be the best. That's the way that Lama Zopa teaches. He teaches it all from the Vajrayana point of view. They even talk about in the teachings, Of course, in the Tibetan tradition, in the monasteries, you'd learn the alphabet. The first thing you do when you get to the monasteries, you join your little house, the house there, and then you're given a monk who will teach you the alphabet. And because the alphabet is the beginning of the Dharma words, they even say that the best view to have is that even your alphabet teacher was one of your gurus. You know, so, and this is the interesting point. The key thing about this is not some kind of thing where you're squashing a person into forcing them to see you as a person, as a Buddha, but it's the advantage to the person that if you see your alphabet teacher as the Buddha, you see the person who gave you refuge as the Buddha, you see the person who gave you the bodhisattva vows as the Buddha, and the person who gave you the empowerment as the Buddha, you are the beneficiary. Because you see, this is also emptiness. If you have that view, it's only advantageous to you because you then get the benefit. I think Jana Rinpoche, he quoted either somebody or he said it himself. If you think a person is ordinary, you get the benefit of having advice from an ordinary person. If you think somebody is the Buddha, you get the benefit of getting advice from a Buddha. So what would I prefer? I mean, this is the point. Geshe Khalsa Gyatso, on the face of it, did an action that is negative behavior. He took the Dharma center of another person. Now that sounds like criminal behavior. But because I had had an empowerment from him, I had decided he was the Buddha. I decided that. Then I took the empowerment. Then I received the blessings of that. Then he took the center. I have not found fault. I leave him there because I know logically, understanding a little bit about the bodhisattva teachings and the tantric teachings, that a Buddha, that a bodhisattva can do a negative action because their heart is pure. We have to accept that possibility. That's logic for me. So then I leave it there. So then my mind is unpolluted. I haven't met him in 35 years, but he's in my mind, he's in my merit field, and my mind is pure. I am the beneficiary of this. So my alphabet teacher, I don't think that way in our culture, of course, within the monastery, the person who gave you the letters that you then use to learn Dharma words, you know, if you that helps your mind, you are the beneficiary. The way we hear this in the West is like some kind of Stalinist thing where you've got to see everybody as a dictator, you know. That's the heavy negative side where it becomes manipulative and brutal and Stalinistic. It's not like that. That's why it's such a dangerous topic in our culture. So the beneficiary of seeing a person as the Buddha is the person who sees the Buddha. There's no other advantage to doing it. The alphabet teacher doesn't care. Lama Zopa doesn't care. He's doing his trip. My job, if I want to be his disciple and get the benefit from his teachings, is to see them as the teachings of the Buddha. I just think that's very logical. That's the idea. But I forgot the second part of the question. What was it last?
Whether you request to be a student of the one.
Yeah, of course you can do that. Absolutely, nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. If they're alive and they're still around, absolutely. If you can't see them physically, you write a letter, you make an offering, you request. If you go to them physically, you make an offering, you do 3 prostrations. I always joke about when I first met Lama Yeshe and knew that he was my guru. I didn't know you're supposed to ask. I'm so arrogant. I informed him he was my guru. He said, yes, I know, dear. It's really, we've got to think about it because it's not, I mean, we do understand it in our culture, but we just don't talk about it. We don't frame it in these words, you know. That's why I like to use the example of Mr. Lee, my Kung Fu teacher, and even the example of my mother being my cook, my cake making teacher. It's exactly the same. I use that example. I'll say it again here. I remember this vividly when I was 25. I was in London, I was a hippie and I wanted to make a carrot cake. And I happened to be going home to Melbourne. I'd never wanted to make a cake before then. This is always the first step. You've got to want something first. I wanted to make a cake. You've got to want it first. This is an unbelievably powerful point. That's why you get grown up and become an adult. I wanted to make a cake. My mother had enough common sense in my youth not to force me. So there I was, went home, please, Mum, show me how to make a cake. I'm sure she was delighted. So this is the interesting point. This is the point of Lama Zopa, Lama Yeshe, when he said the Buddha's dead. The Four Noble Truths only become real for you when you hear it from the mouth of someone. So this is the point for me. That was, I remember the day, the cake, it was an apple and walnut cake. It was in my mind. It's implanted in my mind, the memory of that moment when she taught me how to make a cake. I wanted it. I'd done her checking. I checked on her students, checked on her peers. I checked her cakes, and I was ready. And why did I need to check? This is the point, because I had no experiential knowledge. I didn't know if my mother said to me, put 14 eggs in, darling, I wouldn't have known whether she was right or wrong. I had no experience. So you have to have inferential certainty. I checked on her. I did my due diligence. I was confident. So when she said, sweetheart, put 2 eggs in, beat them up, then this, I didn't start complaining. I did what she said because I had confidence. And that's the day that cakes became real for me the first time. And you know what? You know how they talk about transmission from the guru, blah, 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 all these words. I received the transmission from my mother's mind into my mind of the knowledge of how to make a cake. That's how you learn things. That's a perfect example of a teacher-disciple relationship. But we're talking about a cake. It's the same spiritually. My mind was ready. I remember it. I was completely open to the advice. I took it and she passed it on from my mind to her mind to mine because I was ready. The same with the spiritual teacher. So we are the beneficiary of this relationship. So choose your guru very carefully. Don't be romantic about it. Don't be attached. Don't be stupid. And there's no rush. And you're going to have many teachers. Why don't we do Tara practice, meditation then? What is a little practice, okay? Very simple, very down to earth. To be very relaxed, okay? Very normal, sit there, very normal, relax. Have your back straight, maybe that does help. So you topple off and fall asleep. And we just think, we visualize in front of us, if we can imagine the embodiment of these particular qualities of a Buddha in this aspect of a green, green female body. She's totally gorgeous, this bodhisattva style in this kind of royal, it's more like the Indian, coming from the Indian royal style, really, I think. Kind of silken colored clothes. She's looking totally divine, a 5-pointed crown on her head like a tiara, hair partially held up in a top knot. You become familiar with the pictures and they see the statues, Like I said, it's a visual language, we learn it. And she represents power. She's got all the qualities of a Buddha, wisdom, compassion, but the aspect is this kind of action energy. So if you do have a spiritual teacher, you visualize as their mind manifesting as this gorgeous person, looking so beautiful in front of you. She's sitting on a multicolored lotus. On the lotus is a sun disk and a moon disk, represent wisdom and compassion. Can't see them. And she's sitting with her left leg drawn in like in meditation, but her right leg is resting out on another little multicolored lotus. She's ready to hop up to help sentient beings. She's in this action pose. We see that's Kuan Yin statue, this beautiful Kuan Yin statue sometimes. She's sitting the similar way, leg in this action, relaxed pose. And she's totally beautiful. Imagine this, look, and this the mind of your Lama with enormous love and affection. Her right hand is on her right knee with the fingers up in this gesture of giving, and the left and her thumb and ring finger are holding the stem of a blue lotus flower, like an upala flower, they call it. It's blooming at her right ear. Do your best to imagine, Her left hand's at her heart, fingers pointing up in the mudra, the gesture of the 3 jewels, I think. I always forget. The thumb and ring finger holding the stem of another blue flower that blooms at her left ear. Sometimes you see she just has one. Just imagine all this. The face is divine, totally gorgeous, sweet red mouth. And then decorated, like you see it in the statues, a 5-pointed crown on her head, around her throat, her upper arms, her wrists, her ankles, rainbow-colored clothes on the lower part of her body. But her top part's really basically naked with these gorgeous breasts. And they say with all these Buddhas, they're all in the prime of their youth, like totally divine looking, utterly gorgeous, It should make your mind happy. This is the point. Should lift us, make us joyful, radiant, light. Embodiment of all the qualities of a Buddha. Showing us what we can become. We've got the power to be brave, courageous, cut through the obstacles, action, make things happen, success. We all want that. So now we can add a little bit extra. You can imagine her brows, a white Om, at her throat, a red R, these Roman letters, if you don't know Sanskrit or Tibetan. At her heart, a blue Hung. And we do one little extra thing here. This is, they call this the different words. They call this symbolic being, and it's like a sort of like a visualization, but it's not quite the Buddha yet. So what we do now, we invite all the wisdom beings, we invite all the actual Taras from around the universe to enter into our visualization, making her marvelous. So we visualize blue beams of light from the blue horn go out to all the 10 directions. Northeast, southwest, northeast, northwest, all those business, up and down, 10 altogether. And it hooks the energy of all the actual Taras of the universe, beings who become Tara, hooks the energy of and then all this comes back with the light and absorbs back into our visualization, making it real Tara. Zahung Bam Ho, they become non-dual. And now she very happily sends radiant beams of white light from the white Om at her brow that enter our brow and fill us completely, totally purifying all the misery of our bodies, the sickness, the heaviness, the problems, and also purifying all the negative karmic imprints from any actions we've ever done with our bodies since beginningless time. Totally full of this radiant white laser light, purifying all the suffering and all the past causes of actions done with our bodies to harm others. Full of this blissful white light. We just say our mantras 3 times. It's a mantra. And a mantra is the Sanskrit syllables, which is the sound representation of the same energy. And we just sing the mantra 3 times, visualizing this white light. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Sva. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Sva. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Sva. She very happily sends red light now from the red R at her throat, filling us completely, penetrating, purifying all the nonsense of our speech. Look at us with our speech, uncontrolled speech, rabbiting on about nothing, maybe bad-mouthing people, harsh speech, or speech that's not true. And even if we don't think we're lying, so often we always want to sound like we know what we're talking about. We end up speculating so often, and we're not even confident that what we're saying is true. We don't even mean to lie, but we do this very often. So all this nonsense speech and all the karmic imprints from the past speech, totally purified for this blissful red light. Say the mantras a bit longer this time. We'll sing it 3 times and say a few silently. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Svaha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Svaha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Svaha. Full of this red light. Be so happy. Imagine continuing to come, flooding us, filling us, purifying us. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Svaha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Svaha. Om Tare Tu Tare. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Svaha. Full of this red light, totally purified. Now, mind, the blue hung at our heart, and Tara, she sends these radiant beams of blue light, blue like the sky, that enter our heart, penetrating, filling us completely, and this time purifying the mind, the ego grasping that believes in the intrinsic me, the attachment to get what that me wants, the aversion and panic when it doesn't, and all the other dramas, all of which are not intrinsic. They are not integral to who we are. They are not at the core of our being. They are fabrications When we understand this, it makes sense that we can get rid of them. Then, you know, they're fabrications, they're conceptual fabrications that we've been believed in for eons. So we imagine them completely annihilated. Imagine this radiant blue light. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. 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 So now imagine we've now removed what they call the obstacles to liberation. We've achieved our own liberation. But we can now become a Buddha. So with the addition of bodhicitta, we now remove even the subtlest imprints. They call them the obstacles to omniscience. So imagine Lama Tara so compassionately sending the three lights together. White to the brow, red to the throat, blue to the heart. And this time we achieve Buddhahood. Imagine that. All these subtlest imprints gone. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. So now imagine that Lama Tara's lotus that she's sitting on and the one under her right foot, they melt up into her body, dissolve into her body. And then you imagine very happily she comes and sits above our crowns, every one of us. She sits facing the same way as us. And then delightedly wanting to become oneness with our body, speech, and mind. She dissolves into green light, absorbs our crown, and imagine, fills us completely. So we imagine the energy of Lama's body, speech, mind, of Tara's body, speech, mind, merge with the energy of my body, speech, mind. We become, as Lama Geshe says, we become union oneness. Imagine this. And then, just for a minute, we imagine. No, not yet, it's okay. Just imagine, be like that. Imagine oneness with body, speech, and mind of Tara and Buddha. Tara and the Lama, same thing. This is me. Now imagine we become Buddha, right? What for? For sentient beings. We've got to help them. No point in just blissing out in the sky. So now we visualize all sentient beings. We visualize all in the form of friends, enemies, and strangers, the objects of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Right in front, the people who annoy you, upset you, who've harmed you, objects of your aversion. Even just the present one, you know, that the person's upset you or something. A so-called enemy. And to the left, your beloveds, objects of your attachment. And then to the right, the strangers, those who have neither harmed you nor helped you, for whom you have indifference. But not just the right, but in front of you, to the left, to the right, above, below, and behind. The whole of the universe full of strangers, It's 99.99% of the universe. And they're all in the form of human beings. They're all different experiences of different sufferings of the realms, but they're all in the form of humans, which is the form they can get enlightened in. So knowing that they only want happiness and don't want suffering, just like each other and just like you. And now you are the Buddha, no choice. So you send trillions of tiny green taras from your heart. They emanate out, entering into the enemies. First of all, the enemies, taking away all their pain, all their suffering, and giving them everything they need to make them happy. All the people in the universe who harm others, all the suffering ones, the harmful ones, think this. Give them everything they need, and you take away all their suffering. Little taras entering into them. And then your beloveds, taras entering into all of them, taking away all their suffering and pain, and giving them everything they need. So happening. And all the strangers to the right, above, behind, below, everywhere. Trillions of little green taras emanating out from your heart, entering into every single one of them, giving them everything they need, taking away all their pain, all their suffering, all their negativity, all their misery. Full of these taras, every single one, pervading the universe. So happening. So continue to send the taras, and you visualize they all become Tara. Everyone achieves their own potential to become Buddha. Trillions of taras. Now they all dissolve from above, behind, below, all into you, from all directions, absorbing into you, making your own Tara nature even more brilliant, more marvelous, more amazing, more radiant, more powerful. Imagine this. That's it, relax. So by doing that, we replicated the entire path to enlightenment. We began off as ordinary, we did the purification, we became Tara, and we led all beings to enlightenment. We summarized the entire path to enlightenment, put the seeds of the entire path to enlightenment in our minds. So be very delighted. That's it. Okay. What else? That's it, people. Gone like a dream, all our time gone like a dream, as usual. Gone like a dream, all of it. So be ready for death, you people. Keep practicing. Become Tara quickly. Take benefit all sentient beings. And that's it. I'm sorry, I didn't say much tonight, but what to do. Thank you.
May I add a few words, because we have 2 more nights left for the
Okay,
DB group, but
yeah,
today we have a little bit bigger group, so I wanted to use the opportunity. Hello, everybody online. Hello here. I just wanted to use a quick moment to advertise our upcoming events. We have 2 more events with Venerable Robina this week. One tomorrow on Tuesday, and then the last one on Thursday here on site. So you're very welcome, although it's a DB program, but we are actually
no one knows what
starting.
DBs, they don't know. You have to say it out loud.
The Discovering Buddhism, but we're actually starting a new module, so it might be interesting to anybody. Everybody welcome. We also have an interesting course called Dharma Toolkit with Miffy Maximilian. Venerable knows Miffy very well, and she actually recommended for us to organize this course, so we are very excited. It will be about how to implement or how to use the Dharma methods in terms of rituals and so on, and how to treat all those or the ritualistic part of Buddhism, how to integrate it in our practice and in our life. I also wanted to say that Laksam is entirely funded by your donations. So every thing you see here in the background, the chair Venerable Robina is sitting in the center, the infrastructure online, everything, you paid for it. So I wanted to just express our gratitude, because every single person who is supporting the center is just allowing to make it happen. So it's our karma, our group karma and effort that it all keeps going. And also the center doesn't have any employees. Everything is done by the volunteers who do a lot of work in the background. So I see Tara here in the online, Lars, our SPC. There is Maria, I'm not sure if she's online. Andrea, I heard her, she is online. Talia helping Sabine here in the center. Tam, Sandra, Teres, Christine, Christian, man, almost everybody I see is helping in some way. It's incredible. Jeff, Fabienne. So we have all those people who are helping you, supporters, and there's just so much joy in this whole thing, and we have so much tenderness in this team and so on. So I really, really wanted to say how much we appreciate everybody's help. It's incredible. And also I use the opportunity to advertise. We do have open volunteer positions, including the director position. So if anybody is interested to join our team, you guys just let us know and we will find something for you to do. They are not full-time jobs. There's usually 1 to 2 hours per week that we try to spend on that. And last but not least, word, Venerable, so your mom made cake possible for you, or real for you, and you're making Dharma real for us. So there I can thank volunteers, and I find the words to express our gratitude. For how we could express our gratitude to you, I am missing words, Venerable. So,
Okay, no worries, it's enough. That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye. See you next
Thank
time.
you so much.
Keep
Venerable.
moving.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody. And thank you. It's been so nice being here. And I haven't finished yet. I've got more days. Okay. Goodbye. Thanks,
Thank
Charlie.
you.
Bye.
Okay. Panam. And maybe never develop even for a moment wrong views towards the Buddhism, our most precious teachers, with faith and respect gained from seeing their goodness. May their full inspiration flow into our hearts. That's it. Goodbye. Thank you. Much love, darling.
Thank you, Venerable Robina.
Oh, no, I can do it. Look at
Thank
me.
you, Venerable Robina.
Bye, sweethearts.